This is the Dollemore Daily, and I'm Jesse Dollemore.
Before I get started, I'd like to take just a brief moment to wish my wife and my partner in content creation, Brittany Page, a happy birthday. Almost 10 years ago, we started a podcast together called I Doubt It. This woman, who I affectionately refer to as the lovely, talented, and scholarly Brittany Page, and I would not be where I am today without her. And I would suggest and encourage you to go subscribe to her YouTube channel that she has just started in the last few months. It is fantastic, and it focuses on issues of social justice and poverty. And there's no better human alive today than my wife. I love you very much. Let's talk about the lawlessness problem within the Republican Party. How's that for a right turn? In this case, we're going to continue talking about the Supreme Court of this United States, the court that should be beyond reproach relative to their decisions, that they are dispassionate, that they're just ruling on the law without fear or favor. But in the case of the Republican appointees on the court, many of them, in this case Samuel Alito, we're finding that that's just not the case, that very likely, well, certainly we can call into question the verdicts that they lay down, their opinions, because they're going on extravagant, luxurious fishing trips with billionaires, their pals, and then subsequently make rulings on cases that are before them involving those very friends. In any other instance, in any other occupation, there would be a problem with ethics, that we have a Supreme Court justice not recusing themselves from that case. But in Republican circles, in the America we live in, no big deal. They can police themselves. And once again, I'm going to read from this letter that Dick Durbin, the chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, wrote to Chief Justice Roberts, asking him to come and testify about implementing a code of ethics and standard of conduct for justices on the Supreme Court, to which John Roberts in the past and even as of now says, we don't need that. I'm going to read from this letter here. This is Dick Durbin writing to Justice Roberts. You responded, you, meaning Justice Roberts, Chief Justice Roberts, you responded that the court does not plan to adopt the Code of Conduct for United States judges through a formal resolution, and referenced your 2011 year-end report in which you said, quote, this is John Roberts, the court has no reason to adopt the Code of Conduct as its definitive source of ethical guidance. The court has no reason to do that. We can police ourselves, Chief Justice John Roberts would have you believe. And here we have from ProPublica, yet again, another story of impropriety, of accepting of gifts, drinking $1,000 bottles of wine, flying on a billionaire's private jet to go fishing in Alaska. Photos of these clowns, elbow to elbow. This is from ProPublica. Justice Samuel Alito took luxury fishing vacation with GOP billionaire who later had cases before the court. In early July 2008, Samuel Alito stood on a riverbank in a remote corner of Alaska. The Supreme Court justice was on vacation at a luxury fishing lodge that charged more than $1,000 a day. And after catching a king salmon nearly the size of his leg, Alito posed for a picture. To his left, a man stood beaming. Paul Singer, a hedge fund billionaire who has repeatedly asked the Supreme Court to rule in his favor in high-stakes business disputes. Singer was more than a fellow angler. He flew Alito to Alaska on a private jet. If the justice chartered the plane himself, that cost would have exceeded $100,000 one way. And then there were cases before the Supreme Court brought by or involved by this Singer fella First of all, as an aside, there are too many billionaires in the United States when I've never heard of this guy. I'd never heard of Harlan Crow before we learned about the ProPublica reporting about Justice Thomas. It continues. In the years that followed, Singer's hedge fund came before the court at least 10 times in cases where his role was often covered by the legal press and mainstream media. In 2014, the court agreed to resolve a key issue in a decade-long battle between Singer's hedge fund and the nation of Argentina. Alito did not recuse himself from the case and voted with the 7-1 majority in Singer's favor. The hedge fund was ultimately paid $2.4 billion. So if you're wondering, well, what kind of an ROI, what kind of a return on the investment would Singer get by paying for a $100,000 private jet flight and $1,000 a night vacation, the $1,000 bottles of wine that they bragged, the Wagyu steak? What would be the ROI on that? Well, apparently $2.4 billion is what he got back from his friendship, his earnest friendship. Let me ask you this. Look, I know a lot of people. I know some rich people. I don't know a single billionaire. I've never stood elbow to elbow, having had a luxury vacation paid for me. Have you? Have you? Because it seems out of step with the role of a justice on the United States Supreme Court to have so many uber wealthy friends who are willing to lavish, expensive, luxury vacations upon. That seems weird, does it not? Because I can guarantee Samuel Alito didn't know this Singer fella wasn't cozy with this Singer fella until he became a justice on the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And that should bother you. That should bother John Roberts, who thinks they can police themselves. Alito did not report the 2008 fishing trip on his annual financial disclosures. By failing to disclose the private jet flight Singer provided, Alito appears to have violated a federal law that requires justices to disclose most gifts, according to ethics law experts. Experts said they could not identify an instance of a justice ruling on a case after receiving an expensive gift paid for by one of the parties. Quote, if you were good friends, what are you doing ruling on his case? Said Charles Gay, an Indiana University law professor and leading expert on recusals. Quote, and if you weren't good friends, what were you doing accepting this? Referring to the flight on the private jet. Now, some of you, and I would encourage this, to be skeptical. Ask questions. What exactly was this reporting comprised of? How did they get this work done? What is this? What are the conclusions that they've come to based on? Well, here it is. ProPublica's examination of Alito and Scalia's travel, because also I'm skipping around in this article, by the way. I'm going to put this in the link in the description. Go read this entire thing. I'm jumping around to give the items that I think are most relevant right now to you, to maybe whet your whistle, as it were, to just titillate you just enough to go read this entire set of awesome reporting. They also talked about Scalia. ProPublica's examination of Alito's and Scalia's travel drew on trip planning emails, Alaska fishing licenses, and interviews with dozens of people, including private jet pilots, fishing guides, former high-level employees of both Singer and the lodge owner, and other guests on the trips. So this isn't just a guess. This is not a stab in the dark. It's not just a hunch. This is based upon verifiable information, including fishing licenses and talking to people who were there. ProPublica sent Alito a list of detailed questions last week, and on Tuesday, the Supreme Court's head spokeswoman told ProPublica that Alito would not be commenting. Several hours later, the Wall Street Journal, owned by Rupert Murdoch and Fox News, published an op-ed by Alito responding to ProPublica's questions about the trip. So he's running to conservative media to, they're picking on me. Cowards, weaklings. They need their safe spaces. A man who is bound by a sacred oath and code to uphold and stand for the Constitution, the document they all wave around like it's special to them. Upholding the rule of law laid out herein. And he's taking trips with billionaires. Extravagant $100,000 flights. And then subsequently ruling on verdicts in cases relating to the very people who gifted him those things. Listen, this would be bad even if he ruled and there was no gift. The fact that he's friends with this fella and ruled in a case involving him is bad enough. But the fact that he's getting something in return makes it criminal as far as I'm concerned. Here are Alito's excuses. Alito said, when Singer's companies came before the court, the justice was unaware of the billionaire's connection to the cases. He said he recalled speaking to Singer on, quote, no more than a handful of occasions. So you're speaking personally, privately, cordially, friendshiply to this man, and then you're ruling on cases on his behalf. And they never discuss Singer's business or issues before the court. We know that that is not the bar. Alito said he was invited to fly on Singer's private plane, I inserted private, Singer's plane shortly before the trip, and that seat would have otherwise been vacant. He defended his failure to report the trip to the public, writing that justices commonly interpreted the disclosure requirements to not include accommodations and transportation for social events. So you think that if somebody booked you on an American Airlines flight, oh yeah, it's the same as if someone gifted you a $100,000 private jet flight. Is that what you'd have us believe, Samuel Alito? Is that what you'd have us believe? Because if that's the case, you take us for fucking morons. You take the American people for gullible rubes. Let me dispense with that idea. Most of America are not MAGA morons. Most of America are not blind adherents to the MAGA cult, and our eyes are wide open, and we see you. We see you and what you're doing. Now we need somebody to step up who has the courage in Congress, especially once the Democrats take control of the House, to reorganize the court, which is its constitutionally mandated role. It is part of the checks and balances that we learn about in grade school. That the Congress, it's the Congress's role and duty and authority to organize the courts. So what's the solution here? It's the same solution I've been screaming about for years. Pack the court. 13, 15, 17, 21 justices if we need to. We need to root out this corruption. It's going to take voting. It's going to take democracy in action. It's going to take your organization and your activism to get it done. Because this ain't okay with this document or with common sense. What do you think? I would love to know. I really would love to know. You can call, leave me a brief voicemail, 714-576-4054. Of course, as always, you can email me daily@dollemore.com. If you appreciate what I do and you want to help support my work, produce my work, click the join button. Look into becoming a channel member. Click the super thanks button. Or go over to patreon.com/IDoubtIt podcast. Follow me on social media. I'm at Dollemore all over the place. And I will see you next time. Until I do, be genuine, be decent. Don't be a Supreme Court justice appointed by a Republican. And take care of one another.